Rory, and welcome to Broke But Not Out. And you've got so many podcasts out there. I know The Power of Man is like the big one for you. Um, and Broke But Not Out is kind of a podcast that I started where I was unloading some of my baggage and that. And you are my second guest on here. Um, I'm drawing a blank. The first guy I had on there, and I don't know why I do this every time I get like fixated on one guest. And it's like, trying to bring up the other one. Oh,
Uh-huh.
Pete versus Anxiety. He was my first guest on here.
Oh yeah, I know Pete.
Yep.
Hmm.
And so he kind of got me going you know, doing this as more of like a guest podcast. But I figured out I'm going to do is there's going to be two different seasons I'm running simultaneously with Broke But Not Out. First season is just going to be me letting off steam and stuff like I've been doing. The second season is having guests on. And I got to say, if it wasn't for you, I probably wouldn't be doing Broke But Not Out. So your motivation and stuff like that, and when you get on and do your lives and stuff like that, you are inspiration to many men out there. I mean, even women. I mean, Ashley, she listens to you when I listen to you and that, and she sits there and goes, "Oh, he's right." But you
Wow.
are a huge inspiration to all of us.
Thank you for that, brother. I appreciate it very much. You're doing the work. Honestly, you and Ashley have been through so much, and you guys are just every single day. You just keep showing up. You guys, you inspire me. I'm not even gonna lie, but thank you for saying that. That was incredibly gracious, and I'm glad somebody's listening to those lives.
Yeah, we try to
That's
tune in whenever we
awesome.
can. Whenever we see her on there, it's like might
Uh,
not get to see the whole thing, but at least I want to go on and show support and say hello and stuff like
Very
that.
cool.
And yeah, and they are great. And what you've done for the community, I know a lot of yours is based on like men's health and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But I mean, you've you can go through the Podcaster Nation and Power of Man and all that, and just see what you've built, and it's amazing. I mean, you've let a lot of people that might not have tried to get their voice out there, and then because of you, they've actually tried and got their voice out, and you're an inspiration to a lot of guys. That's all I can really say. Or a lot of people, I should say, because a lot of them probably wouldn't be starting their podcast without listening to you and on what you've done.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
Uh,
no problem.
that's probably the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. So, certainly in a long, long time, and that means a lot. It really does.
I mean,
Thank you.
what are some of the podcasts that you do have out there? Because I know you've been running quite a few. So, what are some of your bigger ones that you know that you're really proud of?
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question. I have 10 right now. The I kind of have the big three, and then there's like two more after that that are doing very well. You know what I mean? But the big three are Power of Man, which is my top podcast. We talk to fathers and husbands, about accountability and stuff like that. So the second one is the Podcaster Nation, and that's a top 10% nationally podcast now, which is crazy. And I mean, you've been around almost since the beginning of that one,
Hmm.
back when I was in the hospital and stuff and
Yep,
almost died.
I still
Uh,
remember you doing the lives from that too.
that's right from my hospital bed. Like, hey, we're not going to let this stop us, everybody. So,
No, because I
um,
remember messaging you after you do those, like, "You all right, man?" I mean,
yes, I remember that. Like, dude, I appreciate you reaching out, but you don't look very good. What's going on? And then the third one is Wake Up the Lions, and that's a podcast I put out there for Christians to come on and share their testimonies and talk about their faith and stuff. That has exploded. So I mean, those are the top
awesome.
three. Sort of my fourth and fifth, which are both like growing like crazy, and are both very niche. And I hate that word niche, so they're
Hmm.
more like niche. But is Step Up to the Mic, which I created for speakers to be able to come on and do their talk and everything else uninterrupted, and that way they can send that out as an audition tape, for people.
Awesome.
And then the fifth one was The Right Path, and that was it's not just an author podcast. It's not just about books and authors. It's about the story behind why you write the book. It's what made you write the book. It's how you write the book. How do you build your characters? How do you, you know, work on setting? How do you describe this and that? And who are you writing the book to? And I released the Right Path podcast, and just with my first episode on it, of me doing maybe 15 minutes of a solo explaining what it was,
Hmm.
and within an hour we had over 500 downloads,
Oh, wow.
and in just boom. And I was like, okay, I don't know what chord I struck with this podcast, but wow. And it was just like, you got to be kidding me. And it's flown from there.
Cool.
So, now granted, 4 and 5, step up to the mic and the right path. They're definitely benefiting from the path that we laid
Hmm.
with Power of Man and the Podcaster Nation, and then even with Wake Up the Lions after that. Because those are the ones that, Power Man was the one that I slaved on for, years and years and years with, you start with 5 downloads, because your mom's listening, right?
Hmm.
You keep on going. But I mean, the work finally paid off after all these years. And that's really all it is, man. It's just keep putting them out, keep stacking them up. And every podcast you do has to have a purpose. That's really it.
Yep.
And you stay in there, stay true to the purpose. So, but those are 5, and I've got 5 more, but we don't have to talk about those. Those are all either newer or growing or fledgling, or something like that. So,
Well, I know your Power of Man, that is the one that's really like I've listened to a couple of the other ones, and me myself, I'm not a huge Christian believer, so it's a little
sure,
harder to get into that one because I have
yeah,
my own faith in that, but with everything that's happened, it's kind of hard to keep on with the faith with pushing through, but
totally
I
understand.
don't disrespect anybody that like that strongly believes. And because my uncle is that way, he's constantly like, You've got to do this. The Bible says this." I mean, he's like one of those old time Bible thumpers, so it's kind of a turnoff.
Right.
But
I get you. Yeah.
the one that I really like is your Power of Man, and I mean, I've been a guest on that show, and what the guys have went through on that, it's just some of them you look back and you're just like, wow. And I mean, like you said, I'm surprised, waking up every day and stuff like that and keep going. A lot of those stories on that are that way. It's just you sit there and you think, my life really hasn't been that bad when some of those guys have talked, and you're just like, wow. And the fact that they found the inspiration to keep moving, I mean, that's got to say something to you too on how you've handled it, brought it out, and basically gave these men like myself and that a voice on how to kind of talk and how to actually, I guess, let it out because it is therapy.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
I mean, I've been to a couple like counselors or therapists, and it doesn't do what this does
Yeah.
because you tell the counselor or therapist, like my biggest problem is they'd ask me questions and I tell them what they want to hear. It didn't really benefit me at all. Now,
Right.
when I can sit there and break down my own walls and do a show, that's what really helps. And I mean, you can feel it when you do a show or when you're listening and you're sitting there thinking, wow, that just drained me. But it wasn't a bad drain. And I mean, I'd imagine that's probably how you feel some of the times when you have some of these guests on.
Brother, that's how I feel almost all the time, especially with that show. I mean, I feel that way with other shows too. Podcaster Nation, we've had a lot of folks who have come on and really poured their hearts out, but Power Man is designed that way, like you said. It's for men to come on and share something that they more than likely have never shared before. And they're sharing it with a guy like me who's real open about the crap I've been through, and so they feel like they're in a safe place, and they know they are. They know that I'm going to give them time to talk and kind of explore, what's going on with them. And they also know that I'm the last guy in the world who's going to sit there and judge either. It's like,
Hmm.
hey man, we all have skeletons in the closet. We've all screwed our lives up at some point. Some of us more than others, But guys come on there, and I'm just thankful that they trust me enough to come on there and open up and talk. I mean, it's a great episode. Of course, it helps with ratings and all that. But the biggest thing is that other men like yourself, right, get to
Hmm.
hear these episodes and go, you know what? That makes sense. You get a little connection and you go, how does it impact my life? Brother, that's the whole point of the show. What you just said there is the reason that I started doing the show. So I'm grateful for that response, to be honest with you. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I know, like we're talking with Pete and stuff like that. Pete's done the same thing, and he's had some guests that, like, when he's gotten into like the suicide and stuff like that, he said he had a guest on there that was literally contemplating suicide that day. I don't know if you've run into any people like that have just sat there and going, this morning, I don't know if I could even wake up, or,
Yeah.
the first thought was a bad thought and stuff like that. And like I said, I'd imagine some of those guys that you've had on there have probably had those thoughts.
I had a guy, well, we've had a lot of that. A lot of that happens off the air.
Hmm.
I had a guy point blank came on, was not the same guy that I had talked to previously. He came on and he was like really, really wiped out. And we started recording for about 10 minutes. And I said, hey, man, we just stopped. And I was like, this isn't you. What's going on? And we just sort of junked the recording, at that moment because he said, I got to be honest with you. I almost didn't even come on here today. And I was like, what's going on? And he said the exact same thing that you're talking about. He said, I damn near did it. I was looking at it. I had it right in front of me. All I had to do was pull the trigger. I've never been that close. And the only reason I kept this appointment was because I wanted to just try one last time to get that out of my head. And I just sat there and talked to him the whole time, off air. I was like, look, we gotta get past this, man. And
Hmm.
he came back on a few weeks later and totally different interview, totally different thing. And all he said to me afterwards was, thank you. You're the only person
That's
that's ever
awesome.
said that to me. I'm not a therapist. I'm not, trying to be a hero or anything, but, men need to be there for other men. We're the only ones who get what we're all going through.
Hmm.
No one else understands that. If you're not a father or you're not a husband, don't go give advice to a father or a husband because you don't get it. You're
No.
never gonna get it, man. I'm sorry, you're never gonna. So it's important work, and guys don't have that outlet. Pete does good work too, man. He brings people on there and really lets them. They connect with him because he goes through a lot of the same stuff. He's real
Hmm.
open about his issues that he deals with every day. And I've had him on as a guest. I mean, so a lot of us are out there doing stuff. You're bringing guys on, talking to them. Uh, I love that you're back in podcast and doing what you're doing, man. I really do. When I saw those, posts come through again, I was like, there he is, man. All right. And, Shannon's back. What's
Yeah,
up?
it's been a lot of work because I've been dealing with, because we're so small. I do all the editing for everything, and I mean, Ashley's
Mhm.
finally started to get back moving on it. The boys have started theirs. We've got our dog one, which is just basically fun and for kids.
Right.
And my main one, Blown Pistons, has been picking up. And I actually, when you mentioned your one podcast about the authors and that, I've got a
Mhm.
guy I just interviewed, and I just put the interview out there, but he did a kid's book, and I think it'd be really interesting for you because he went through it. He's an what did he say his profession was? It's a paraprofessional.
Okay.
So he works at school full time. He's a counselor, and he works with kids with disabilities, but he's also a ARCA driver, which just ran at Daytona last weekend. And he wrote a kid's book. And instead of going through and having somebody illustrate it, he had all of his kids do all the illustrating for it. And it's a story of basically following your dreams. So that might be one for you.
That's awesome. That's
But
awesome.
yeah, the
Yeah, for
guy,
sure, man. We'll connect. We'll talk about it afterwards. Yeah.
but no, I just kind of wanted to get more into, like, I know you do other side jobs too. You're a speaker,
Mhm.
and you do help with guys that are having issues. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know I've got a few people that have only listened to this podcast, the Broke But Not Out, and haven't
Mhm.
really listened to the rest of it because it's kind of, they're not really into like the automotive field or anything like that. So it's kind of a turnoff, even though how I've explained it, they laugh at. But some of the side stuff that you do is amazing.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
appreciate that. Yeah, at this point we have one sort of big business umbrella. It's called Silver Core Media Group, and that handles podcasting, public speaking, coaching, podcasting, and coaching public speakers, and also social media training and social media management. So we do all those things. In addition to that, I've had a leadership outreach group that I've been doing. And I've been doing that since moment one. And that's been for not just for veterans, but I do have a lot of veterans in it. But it's for fathers and husbands who are just kind of dealing with the everyday stuff and just need someone who's been there to kind of talk to about it. And we have strategies for dealing with stuff and things like that. So um, I'm very fortunate that I mean none of this is actually a side business. This is my full time gig. It's what I do. So it's my company. All of these different offshoots are still under the same umbrella now. They weren't before, but they are now. And so it's my full time job. It's my business. It's how I grow it. And those are all the different sort of departments of the business. And I'm blessed to be able to do that, to be able to help men. And when you're talking to a man, or you're talking to a Marine who brought a big chunk of Afghanistan home with him, and you're working with him for 6 months, and at one point his wife comes on the call that you're having with him and says, "Listen, I just want to tell you thank you because my husband is a completely different guy than he's ever been." I, Everything you do at that point, man, is worth it. Everything you've ever tried to do is worth it because that that guy's life changed
Hmm.
because of the work that you're doing. And when you can do that, man, it's I mean, all the money aside, income aside, full time work aside, I would do that for free. So it to have that kind of impact on somebody is what I wanted to do the moment I started all this. I started all this so that anybody going through the kind of rough time I went through when I was completely alone would never feel like they were completely alone. And we've managed to do that more than a few times. So thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate the kind words, and we're still continuing to do that. It's a big deal for us.
Cool. Yeah, because I mean, when you bring up like the vets and stuff like that, I mean, there's a high suicide rate
Mm.
in just that right there because a lot of them with the PTSD and stuff they've went through, they without having an outlet, I mean, it just kind of festers inside their brain, and at some point they just say enough's enough. But if it wasn't for like guys like you bringing it out and helping them deal with it, there'd probably be a lot more of them that have no idea how to handle it. And I mean, even the suicide rate in men alone is higher than the percentage of women,
Hmm.
but it's
Oh yeah.
because, women have a better way of bringing things out, dealing with it, and letting it out better than men because men will sit there and, like I've gone onto it with other shows, it's like I remember growing up, we were taught that men had to conceal their emotions. They don't cry. They don't let anything out. You got to, act tough and strong all the time. But that type of mentality breaks a guy down to the point where if he feels like he can't get it out, he might end up doing something stupid. Where if he can let it out and actually talk and figure that out, sorry, my son's
You're
Jaden,
all
I'm
right.
doing a show, bud. But a lot of those guys, if they can't get it out, they do end up taking, and I'm not saying taking the easy way out, but it's mentally draining on them the whole time. And then what happens to like their family and stuff afterwards because they may think, well, once it's over, it's done with. But then it's like their families and that are the ones that have to pick up the pieces, which it's not fair to anybody in that situation or that scenario. It's a losing fight for everybody.
Yeah.
But the fact that if there's somebody out there to talk to, even if save 1 out of 10 Marine or, 1 out of 10 men, you saved somebody. You made an impact in their life. And that's what matters. And that's why a lot of these shows need to start coming more out to light to kind of help these people and realize, hey, I need help. And that's whether it is, if therapy does work for that person or just talking to another guy, sitting down and just getting it out.
Yeah. I talked to a lot of guys who have done the therapy thing. They've tried to go to therapy, and I think you mentioned it earlier. I've heard it from these guys. I tried the therapy thing before. The problem is the therapist always has I don't want to say an agenda, but the therapist has um, sort of a pattern. They've got a way of doing things. They have a step one, two, three, four, five. They have a set pattern that they've learned. They've been taught this is how you get someone to open up, and this is how you get to the bottom of the problem. And oh, if they say this, then it must be one of these diagnoses, right? So let's go
Hmm.
over here. If they say this, well, then it's not those. It's over here. And you know what? It might just be that the guy doesn't know how to explain himself, and now
Yep.
you're pigeonholing him into a diagnosis. No one's trying to be a therapist. I'm not trying to be a therapist. I'm not trying to represent myself that way. But a lot of the guys that I talk to do come from therapists, and they're like, I just can't. I don't know what he or she wants to hear from me. And then honestly, it also we get a lot of guys who get assigned to therapy from either their unit or from their job or their family or whatever, and they end up with women as therapists. And there's nothing wrong with a female therapist. My goodness. I mean, I'm sure she's probably more qualified than a guy therapist. But you know what? If you're a man and you can't dialogue,
Yep.
you know what I mean? The idea is, oh, well, if you can't dialogue with your wife, then you can dialogue with this female therapist. No, you're still embarrassed. You still feel like a failure. You still know you're not leading your family. You blah, 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 blah. You're not protecting them. You're not providing for them. These are male things. You can talk to a female about that all day long, and they're not going to understand what it feels like to be a man in that spot. Period. Only a man in that spot can understand what a man in that spot feels like.
Hmm.
I get a ton of heat for statements like that, and it's not sexist. It's just fact. One's not better or worse than the other. It just is. And like I said before, if you're not a father or a husband, even if you are a man, you don't get what a father or husband is going through. It's
Yep.
a whole different world, brother. And we're not even talking about all the societal implications that hit you, right? And what you're allowed to talk about, and what social media does to you, and everything else. It's just to be able to have a guy who's been there makes a ton of difference.
Yeah, it's funny you said that because it reminds me, like, my wife, she loves listening to you talk and stuff like that. But she will admit, because when she talks about, like, she'll talk about your shows and that, she'll be like, well, at first, because the way, like, what you just said, she goes, at first I thought he was really arrogant. But
That's fair.
she goes, after listening to him talk, she's like, he's not. I realize he is correct on what he's saying. It's just, she goes, as a woman's point of view, that was my first thought. But she goes, now
Yeah.
after listening to him and watching, the shows, and then you were actually on her show at one point,
Mhm.
she has tremendous respect for you, and that arrogancy thought is no longer even in there because she understands where you're coming from. And the more I've kind of brought my shows on, she's like, okay, she's starting to see the male point of view in that.
Yeah.
So she's totally getting it.
I
So
love hearing that. That's
I just always get a kick out of it because whenever she like says about or talks about you, she goes, "Yeah, I'll admit it. At first, I thought he was arrogant. I didn't." I'm like, "Oh, great, one another one of these guys." And then she's like, after him on my show and listening to him, she goes, "He's not. He's blunt, puts it out there, and that's his point of view." Where she
yeah.
don't want to dance around something, she wants somebody that's actually going to say what they're going to say.
I love that. Well, your wife is pretty sharp.
Yeah, she
So,
is.
I mean, she's very open-minded also to like other points of view and stuff. So, I mean, if she was some closed-minded person who was just looking for reason to be angry, like so many other people are who hate my guts, then I wouldn't get that. You know what I mean? But the part about being arrogant or being a male chauvinist or being sexist or whatever, I mean, I hear it all the time. I get it, and I'm like, listen, being a mom is an incredibly tough job. So is being a dad. I'm not
Hmm.
saying one's tougher than the other. I'm just simply telling you that I don't have any idea what it's like to be a mom. I'm not going to sit here and have, now that's arrogant. As if I can turn around and say, well, I know what it's like being a mom. No, I don't. My wife's gone through stuff, brother, that I can't even imagine going
Hmm.
through. She delivered two kids without a single painkiller. You kidding me? I'd have been crying in the corner. I'd have been like, just forget it. Take them out. Knock me out. Goodbye. She's done things over the years that I couldn't even think about doing. It's just different. It's
Hmm.
100% different. I'll never know what it's like to be my wife as my wife and the mother of my kids. She's never going to know what it's like to be a father and to be a husband in today's world. That's it. And, I'm glad that Ashley understands that now and doesn't think I'm just some arrogant jerk. That's great.
No, she loves you, man.
But it's fair. It's a very fair assessment, especially up front. I'm a tough flavor to take.
Yeah, she she loved having you on. Yeah, she loves listening to when you go live. She'll sit right next to me and watch it with me.
Thanks. That's cool.
So, oh my gosh, I forgot to silence my phone. That's the number one rule, and I always do it. I get on like Ashley and the kids, and that's like, you silence your phone.
Hey, you're breaking the rust off, man. You know what I
I
mean? You're
know,
getting back into it. It's all good. It's all growing pains, man. You're not offending me. Get out of town.
but I do have to definitely agree with one thing you said, and one of your lives, I think it was no, it was this week, I think,
Hmm.
when you were talking about, and one of the biggest things that society does is when somebody sits there and says that they've got a problem, they sit there and point out, well, if you'd have done this differently or you'd have done this. And like you said, we shouldn't be doing that as a whole. We should be building everybody up, not sitting there pointing out their problems or anything like that.
Hmm.
Like, stand next to them, just listen and just help and not, point out all of their mistakes. And like I said, some of the stuff that you say on that, they are so true on that. Because that is one that I've been trying to work with my kids in that on that aspect and not point out their mistakes all the time, or when I get frustrated with them. But those words are really true, and a lot of what you say on that stuff, if you actually listen to it, it is very true.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's one of the better ways, that society in a whole, or even like men's health, is one of the best ways that we can help men actually get going instead of always sitting there looking at their flaws, or pointing out their flaws.
Yeah. I'm glad you heard that part, man. I really am. I mean, it it always makes you feel good to have your words given back to you, like, and hear and know someone actually heard them, and acted on them. So that's wonderful. I appreciate the fact that you got that. And it's one of the most basic things in the world. If somebody's talking to you, you don't need to be trying to fix them or solve it or anything else. Just put your hand out and just be there for them. That's it. And then you
Hmm.
literally have done your job if you just are there. That's all. It's not on you to fix it, to critique them, to say you shouldn't have done this or anything else. But man, that's where we go. We judge immediate. Well, maybe you shouldn't have done that. Then this wouldn't be happening to you, right?
Hmm.
Because that's what I need to hear when my face is on the floor and I got bricks on my back because the whole wall caved in. Yeah, no thanks.
It
But
just
you're right,
makes you
man.
feel worse.
Yeah, that's not why I reached out, right? I didn't want to get beat up more. So I appreciate you listening to that, man.
And I know that's one thing, like with my wife and I, we do struggle with that in a lot of ways at times. And like we've gotten to discussions before, and it's like when we sit down and talk, is I've told her this and she's told me that. It's like, I didn't want really your opinion. I just need an ear to listen to me. And that's one of our struggles in our marriage that we have. But that is one thing that helps out with a lot of guys too. And I know you've said that before. Just sit back and listen to somebody and let them talk and let them vent.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, man. It's huge. It's a very understated idea, and it's a lot of people think, oh, well, that's too easy. That's simple. Sometimes, man, the simplest stuff is the most effective.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's pretty huge.
Well,
But
especially if
yeah.
you're going to sit back and listen, sometimes the hardest thing for the person listening isn't, speaking their mind.
Hmm.
It can get really hard to just sit there and listen and sit there and go mentally in their head. They're like, well, this is why this is doing this, but it means the world to somebody if you just sit there and go, no, I totally get it.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
And I'd imagine you probably get quite a bit of that, like off your shows and stuff like that, where you'll have random guys. And I mean, I've done it too, message you and say, hey, I'm having this issue and stuff like that. And I will give you credit. You've never turned anybody away or anything like that. So I commend you for that one too.
Thanks, man. I think that's part of it. It's hard to put yourself out there and say, "Hey, I'm here for you," and then not be. You know, yeah, I get calls at 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes. I mean, I get the messenger or the text, at 2 a.m. And for men and women. you know, I have podcasting students that are women that are like stressing out over some podcast issue, and at 3:30 in the morning, they're sending me a messenger.
And you're like, I'm just trying to sleep.
I'm like, all right, hold on a minute. Let me answer this one. I got you. I'm right here. No, hold on. Here we go. Because I mean, to me, it's like, hey, I'll answer you tomorrow. To them, it's like, I'm going to lose my mind if I don't figure this out right now. And it's a lot sometimes to be there that way, but it also, honestly, other than raising my children, my personal children, it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done is to be there for these people that are in my life. That every time somebody reaches out to you like that, what they're saying is, look, I trust you and I could use a hand. How do you ever say no to that, man? How could you ever say no to that with anybody?
Hmm.
It's the greatest compliment you could ever get. So I appreciate you noticing that too and bringing that up. I mean, is this whole podcast just like build me up type of thing? Because I mean, I wasn't ready for this. I'm getting ready to cry.
Well, no, it's just,
I'm just
I
teasing you,
don't even
man.
know
I
how to put
appreciate it.
it.
I appreciate it very much. Just yeah, yes,
So
yeah.
I
Go
guess
ahead.
personally, what do you do when you need to take a break and you need to de-stress?
Wow, collapse. So, and my wife is going to hear this when you put this episode out, and she's going to look at me like, there's an idea. Um, I'm trying to get better at it. My wife is talking to me about my schedule and stuff. She sat me down 2 nights ago, and she gave me a big long speech. She said, "Okay, tell me what you have, booked for tomorrow." And I read it all off. She goes, "Okay, where's your break in that day?" And I looked at her like she just spoke Greek. I was like, "What? Break in the day? What are you talking about? I'm booked all day." And she's like, "Okay, what's the next day like?" And I read it all off. And she goes, where's your break in that day?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Why are you saying these words that I don't understand?" And we went over like 4 or 5 days. And she goes, "Do you realize you haven't put a break in your day for 5 days straight coming up? And you haven't had a break in your day for the last 3 days. Exactly when are you planning on taking a break, or are you just going to break at some point and then you have to cancel stuff and reschedule it?" And I was like, "Did the doctor call you, or what is going on?" But she was just pointing out the same thing. I mean, I start some days at 3 o'clock in the morning for real. I interview people in Europe. I'm in Poland, Israel, Australia. And those people are literally the opposite end of the earth in terms of the time. And
Hmm.
then I come back over here and I have people in California that are 3 hours behind us and all that kind of fun stuff. So I get all sorts of time zones. I book all day long, and there are days literally where I will interview and or have coaching calls from 3:30 in the morning until midnight,
Oh, wow.
and then I'll sleep for a couple hours and start the next day again. Doing the same stuff. And it's I don't. My kids are all gone, right? I mean, I used to work a 70-hour a week job and make sure I was at every, track meet and every
Yep.
basketball game and every football game. And I coached half of that. You know what I mean? So I was there for the whole time for every other kid too, including my own. Plus I ran side businesses, plus I started a podcast that I had to try to build up. I've been working 20-hour days for the last 20 years. So doing it now, it's all for me, and for the people that I work with. So I love every minute of it is the problem. I don't want to take a break because then I feel like I'm going to miss out on somebody,
Yeah.
and I don't want to do that. So I'm getting better. To answer the question, I'm getting better at thinking about it. Um, and we're trying to kind of figure out the schedule where it's like, okay, 3 times a week, you're going to take this time slot off so you can just go to the gym and not have anybody, calling you.
Hmm.
And then maybe 3 times a week, we're going to take this time slot off so that you can actually sit down and eat lunch and not grab 3 bites while the episode's processing before you start the next episode.
Yep.
You know, so we're working on it. It's a work in progress. Okay.
Yeah, because
That's
I,
the
I
answer.
I get that with Ashley. She's like, all right, we're planning a family night. So you are not to be on the computer. You are not planning any podcasts or any shows like that.
There you
We're
go.
gonna sit down and watch a movie, which the last one I actually got to pick, and it's a childish movie, but I love it. The How to Tame Your Dragon.
Oh, great movie.
Yeah, the non-animated one that just come out on like I think it was Netflix or Hulu or something like that.
Yeah.
It
Good
was a
movie.
great movie.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're already planning our next date night because there's another movie that came out that I want to see because I'm big in like the horror stuff kind of. And there's a movie about Frankenstein's bride coming out. It's called The Bride.
Oh, all
It looks
right.
really good, but it's set in like the 1930s. And it's like, I seen the preview. I'm like, we're already planning a date night for this.
Well, all right, man. I mean, that sounds like it's going to be an instant classic. So very cool.
And I know like her and that there'll be times too, and she's actually sitting down doing shows, and I can tell it wears on her, and it's like you've got to take a break.
Yeah.
And she tells me the same thing because I'm always messing with something on the network, trying to figure out something. I mean, I'm reading or doing some research into maybe changing where we send our network or the shows because right now we're on Spreaker. I'm looking at
Hmm.
possibly going to something else,
Hmm.
but yeah, she yells at me all the time. Not yells, but she talks to me all the time and says, "You need to take a break, get off the computer, sit down, watch some TV with me, or spend some time with me because, yeah, by the time the end of the day with the kids, the dogs, and everything, by the time we actually both make it to the bedroom, or well, I should say the bed because the studio right now is in our bedroom. But once we both make it to there, I mean, it's almost 12:30 at night, and
Yeah.
it's like she's sat down and said, there's times where we have some communication issues, and it's because we haven't really had time to sit down and talk. And I'm still out of work because of my foot injury,
Hmm.
which is a
Wow.
whole different thing. Yeah, I'm still
Right.
going to the doctor and workman's comp, fighting them, lawyers, and all that fun stuff. But she's like, you've got to take it easy because you've got to let that thing actually heal because I'm constantly up on it. And
Yeah.
like, with me out of work and that we find each other too. It's like we see each other constantly throughout the day, but we don't really talk. But at the end of the day, it's like we don't really know what to talk about because we see each other all day. So, and the nice thing is too, if we get into arguments, it's not her and I arguing about anything we're doing. It's her and I arguing about some way that we handled the boys.
Hmm.
So, like, if we didn't have the kids, our relationship would probably be perfect. And I'm not
Yes.
blaming the kids by any means.
I know. Said every parent ever, probably,
I I'm sure we would find other things to argue about and stuff. I mean, today,
Hmm.
like she told me in the van on right before the show, she's like, "You are just antagonizing the hell out of me." And I'm sitting there with a smile on my face because it's like, okay, this is fun, but I could tell she was getting real irritated. But it's just, I found like one of our biggest struggles is like we want to spend time together, but when we see each other all the time, it's like we kind of lose the communication in that aspect. And I don't know if you've run into that with, you know, when you're at home all the time and stuff like that, or like the days that you're not doing the show. Like, I don't know if your wife's home or if she's working or whatnot, but I mean, that is one of the struggles that we do have in our relationship.
Yeah, I understand that, man. We have a unique setup, my wife and I. But for years, it was, she was a stay-at-home mom for a long time. Taking care of the kids, and I was working multiple jobs if I had to make sure she could keep being a stay-at-home mom. and that's what we did. Then she wanted to go back to work when they got a little bit older, and that just kind of got her out of the house a little bit and that type of thing. Where we are now, kids are gone. So we're an empty nest. All of our kids are out there, making they're staking their claims, making their fortunes, right?
Hmm.
And it's just she and I. And when that last kid leaves the nest, you sit down on the couch, you look at each other, and you're like, "Nice to meet you." Now what? Uh, because the kid's schedule is no longer making yours.
Yep.
And so, we kind of started over. And I do what I do, which is, it's an uneven business, but, we do pretty well. And then she works part time for a dental office, and just she has to get out of the house. She's off on certain days when I'm podcasting all day long. And, she's staying, out of this, general area where I'm at, but it wears on her a little bit that she can't like run the blender or something, if I'm in the
Hmm.
middle of a recording. She's always got to be worried about, is it okay to do the wash right now because he's recording this or something?
Yeah.
So, yeah, sure. Do I get on her nerves? I'm sure that that's the case. She doesn't get on mine. I love having her here. It's much better scenery if she's walking around than if I'm just staring at the wall, So,
Yep.
but yeah, we deal with that just like everybody. And I think it really helps though that she has that part time thing to get out of here and associate with her adult friends, at work, and hey, she brings in a couple extra bucks that way too for herself, which is awesome, and that helps.
Hmm.
Yes, I'm sure right?
Yep.
But it's good. Everybody has those issues, but we just deal with them day to day,
And
as they come up.
that's the best way you can do it, because
Oh,
and that's the one thing too I've noticed, like watching my friends and that when they struggle, and sometimes when it's like divorces and stuff like that, it's like, did you ever sit down and actually talk and not yell and scream at each other or anything like that, or just bottle everything up inside?
yeah,
And I mean, that's one of the walls that I had to put down in our relationship was, constantly bottling everything up. And then eventually at some point, it's just enough's enough and you explode. But, and I mean, I'm still working on that. I have that issue at times where I'll just get so mad, I just get silent and won't talk. And she'll be like, all right, we need to sit down and talk this out, because I can tell you're not okay when I'm just like, whatever, I don't care. And it's like, no, you do care. You're just bottling it up, and we don't need to have a all out, argument about this, because we don't really fight. I mean, maybe raise our voices once in a while, but that's about it. But it's kind of, we don't want to get to that scenario. So, and I know like women have an easier way of just letting it out, where men
mm,
are like pre-programmed to keep it inside, deal with it, bury it down. And that is the one thing that men as a society need to start realizing, that, you are still a man if you're talking about your problems.
yeah,
And
for sure.
most men don't seem to, it's a hard thing to battle for a man, I guess. Because I mean, I've fought that battle, and it is hard to get through and get over. But I mean, I know you've probably battled that with people you've talked to too, and telling them, look, you've got to get through this.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, regularly.
what are some of the harder struggles, or something that you tell your guest when they're trying to, like, when they can't quite get over that wall to break it down? Is there anything that you do to kind of get them to kind of get over it?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. It really is. By and large, when we can't get over that wall, like you said, um, it's because we're in our own way, and we do a number on ourselves. One of the things we do, for instance, is scorekeeping. You know, and so it's like if you know that you're keeping score,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, I did this. Well, I shouldn't have to do that. She didn't do this or this, right? You're literally tracking her activities and your activities and who did what, and did I do more? And as soon as you start keeping score, you lose.
Yep.
But the problem is that when you are keeping score and you feel like you're ahead, then you instantly are against doing something different. As men, we dig our heels in at that point and we go, oh, you know what? I shouldn't have to do this and this. Kiss of death. Always ends badly for us, right?
Yep.
It never works out. But that right there, when we transfer from the vulnerability thing we're trying to get to, and when we transfer from really dealing with what's going on within our hearts, it turns to anger. That anger shuts the wall. It just closes the wall off. It shuts the door, locks it behind you. You're not getting through then at all. So what I do with men is we kind of do a kind of a battle check. And it's like, all right, are you keeping score? First of all, if you
Hmm.
are, let's get out of that. Let's talk it through. Let's stop doing that. We look at what are we doing, that is preventing this from happening. If we are keeping score, are we at least understanding that we don't get credit for the first 48? Men don't get credit for the first 48. That's 40 hours a week plus an hour every day plus an extra one. You don't get credit for that. That's expected. That's what you signed up for,
Yep.
right? That's your job. It's like the wide receiver in football who catches a 4-yard pass, gets the first down, and then wants to like celebrate for 45 minutes. That's what you get the paycheck for, bro. Okay. Is to make a catch.
Hmm.
Now, you get an 89-yard touchdown with one hand, you celebrate all you want. Okay. That's wonderful. But a 4-yard first down, shut up and get back in the huddle, man. We got more to do.
Yep.
You know,
Your job's not done.
that's what happens to us as men. We feel like, hey, I washed the dish. Well, that's great, but you don't get credit for the first 48 hours of what you did, right? All that work and all that extra stuff, that's expected. You don't get credit for that. So you're still at zero. That's all you did was wash that extra dish. So get to the back of the line. I don't want to hear about your accomplishment today. You know, uh, we go through those things. And the big issue when you're dealing with men is you got to sort of knock down those barriers, right? Are we doing this? Are we keeping score? Are we trying to get credit for the first 48? Are we taking a heart posture that says, I'm against my wife, or I'm competing with my wife for who does more? Or am I giving to my family and it doesn't matter? It's all about perspective. And when we can get through our own stuff and we can break our own wall down and get out of our own way, it's amazing how the relationship with us and our wives improves almost immediately.
Yep.
So it's a process, but that's kind of how we start.
Well, yeah, I noticed that like the other night because I know a lot of times my wife's like, especially when doing something with the podcast and stuff like that, she'd be like, okay, well, I was downstairs doing supper and feeding the animals and all this. And she's like, I'm tired. And it's like the other night I went downstairs. She was, taking a shower. I fed the animals. I got supper going the best I could to what I was capable of doing and stuff. And, you know, jumping into everything. And then by the time we actually got to bed and she just kind of curled up next to me and it's like, all right, yeah, not keeping score, but at the same time, it's like, you know what? That was a win. Like I didn't sit there and say, "Well, I did this, I did this, I did this." I just did it for her, and her at the end of the day, it's like you feel more accomplished when you're not sitting there trying to figure out everything that you can outdo her with, instead of surprising her and not really having her expecting you doing it, and you just do it, and then it's a load off her. So
100%,
it's
man.
it's a bigger win that way, I think.
Yes, it is. It's the old, you have to make a deposit into the bank account before you can withdraw from it.
Hmm.
Yeah, you did all that. You did the dishes, you took care of the animals, you fed the kids, yada yada. That's a deposit into the bank account, right? After that, hey, you get a little cuddle time, great. That's beautiful, right? Maybe that's a little bit of a withdrawal. But you go and try and get, some cuddle time, right? Or a little intimacy or something, and you haven't made that deposit yet, you're going to get an overdraft notice from your wife that's going to say, "Sorry, bank closed."
Yep. Yeah, we've run into that. She's like, some of this, and she literally flat out told me this. She's like, because we've been having kind of a slump, and I know it's a lot of her not feeling well and stuff like that. But she's like, what would really help is if I wasn't doing all this all the time. And it's like, you are right. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I've got to start thinking of a lot of the family and stuff like that instead of just going straight on our business and just going on that. And I mean, that's part of the biggest problem too, is the fact that men and women, at I guess human as a species, we have a hard time admitting that when we are wrong, instead of listening to the criticism sometimes, of, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. And I mean, that kind of goes into what you were saying earlier, but there are some times that we do need that so we can be like, that person's right. We do need to change a little bit.
Hmm.
And for good or for bad, I mean, at times, there are times where now I'm sounding like I'm contradicting that from earlier. And I'm realizing it. But the criticism does help at times. But I think that's more along the lines of like friendly criticism, where it's not when you're at your rope's end and then somebody comes in and steps in and starts saying, well, this is what you did wrong. You're kind of getting the little bit of criticism before it gets to the point where you're completely broken down. So it's
Got you.
kind of like a
Yeah.
preventative criticism, I guess you could say.
Right on. Right on. All criticism hurts, period. Whether it's constructive or whether it's, helpful. I mean, it all hurts because as
Hmm.
men, we never want to hear we're doing something wrong. It's
It's
just
like a
part
hit
of
to your pride.
100%. That's it. It's your pride, right? And no matter how much you try to not be prideful, we all are. It's in our DNA, right? Now, when we are feeling proud, we are stronger. We are better. Like you just said, there's a sense of accomplishment,
Hmm.
right? When you have that sense of accomplishment, you are more proud of yourself and of what you're doing. Pride is a great asset to us when it's used correctly. When it's used for good, it's great. The problem is
Yep.
when pride gets used for evil purposes, then it turns into, the death of us. So, you brought up some great points right in there, man. Really and truly. The thing that I think guys need to understand too is that if you are in a position where it's almost toxic because you have a spouse who is doing nothing but pointing out your flaws all the time, two
Been
things
there.
there. Right. Two things. Number one is that's a breakdown in communication. Okay. So, in any issue with the marriage or with the family, it only gets better if somebody takes the first step. That's it. No problem solves itself. No problem just metamorphosizes into being fixed. Someone has to take the first step. Then you hope that the spouse or the kid or whoever you're having the problem with takes the next step in return. But someone has to lead.
Hmm.
Someone has to take the first step. So if you're not taking that first step, well, then you are the problem
Yep.
until you take the first step, right? So there's that. The second thing is if that is your relationship, there's a very good chance that it didn't start that way. So you have to look at it and go, how did it get this way? And more than likely, if you really get honest, and as a man, you break everything down and you say, all right, where did I really lose control of this thing? You know,
Hmm.
it usually goes back to I needed to take a first step and I didn't, and things kept festering.
Yep.
It's
Big chain
almost
reaction.
always a breakdown in leadership somewhere where we needed to step up and we either hoped she would or decided nobody could. So it really all comes down to that, man.
Hold on one second. My wife's knocking at the door.
Oh, of
Sorry.
course.
Ow. Huh? Oh. Hey, Jay, you got to be a little quieter about this. Were you just knocking at her door? Oh, okay. Sorry. I must have misheard. Must have been the dog.
Hey, man.
Must have
That's
been our dog or something. I don't
all
know.
good. That's that authentic stuff in the recording, man. You know what I mean? It's gotta love it. Gotta love
And there was
it.
something else too. Oh yeah, I've noticed too. Like I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but I know like doing research in it, the family dynamic is one thing too that I found that can be a cause of like issues in marriages and stuff like that. When you go
Hmm.
into it, like a woman is, how do I say this? Lack of better words, like bred into where there's a problem, she focuses on one. Where like usually the man or the male of the family, he'll sit there and look at it as a whole. And it's kind of like
Hmm.
a military thing, I guess, in a way, where you almost substitute one person for the better of the whole or whatever. and I've noticed that in like our marriage and that there are or not or yeah, some arguments in that where she'll be like, well, we need to focus more on this, and it's like, well, family dynamic, we need to focus on another thing, not just one thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
If
I
that
know what
makes
you're talking
sense.
about. No, I do. The family dynamic plays into everything. So I do get what you're talking about. It's always an issue. It's always an issue because we look at things completely differently in how we're going to fix what we're going to fix.
Hmm.
Men always will look at a bigger picture and say, okay, this is how we need to fix this in order to get this together. We try to look at things in like a logical order, for instance, also.
Yep.
Women will look at it from an emotional standpoint and will say, okay, I feel like this needs to be done, this needs to happen, this needs to be taken care of. And they're going to go by how they feel first. Now, again, I get a lot of hate for stuff like that when I say it out loud. But it's a fact. It's just a fact. We don't normally get run by our emotions, but our emotions might be what's causing us to say, hey, I have to fix the problem.
Yep.
But in the end, we try to look at it and go, logically speaking, how do I fix it? Right? Whereas women say, okay, what needs to be dealt with? It's a big difference. That doesn't always end well for us, but we also have to lead the way through that and say, hey, we know we're looking at this differently. So I know how I'm looking at this. Can I look at it the way she is so I can understand it? Right? If you do that
Exactly.
enough, she will start doing it for you. She'll say, hey, I'm looking at this differently, but I need to understand how he's looking at it so I can understand him. But somebody has to go first.
Yep. And
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest steps in a relationship. And it's either, and it always reminds me of that old, I don't know if you ever listened to country back in like I think it's 90s,
Oh,
but the
yeah.
Travis Tritt song, Foolish Pride,
Oh, yeah.
that, that
Yeah.
song always reminds me of that. And I mean, that's
Oh,
what a
yeah.
lot of it is. And that's what a lot of hurt things in the relationship. And I guess it's kind of going full circle with the pride thing, but that's what a lot of it is. And if somebody can't take that first step, that is a foolish pride thing too, in effect, that will destroy a relationship. And he's arguing with his tablet. If you can hear him in the background.
I can't hear a thing, man. Only you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But that is one thing that will definitely kill any relationship. And I mean, that kills even like between two men, the whole foolish pride thing when you've got people that have been like your brother for, ever, and then
Yeah.
something happens, and instead of just admitting you're wrong and I guess in a sense stepping up and taking the blame, where two people will sit there and be like, nope, I am not doing this because this person was completely wrong. And sometimes you just got to get over it to rebuild that and rebuild that communication and even fix the problem with one person just taking, like you said, the first step. And even if they're not 100% wrong, sometimes being like, I just kind of put it out. Yeah, I was wrong in how I did the problem, or not did the problem, but how I proceeded to see the problem rather than, nope, I'm completely right. You're completely wrong. And we're never going to fix anything.
Yeah.
And once somebody can actually, like you said, take the first step and even admit partial, responsibility on it and taking responsibility for their action, that's what I've been trying to teach the boys too,
Hmm.
is taking responsibilities for your actions, because that is one of the biggest things that they're going to deal with their whole lives. And if you can't take responsibility for your actions, good or bad, that's just going to ruin every relationship in any circumstances that you can be in.
Yeah. That honestly, that's great advice, and that's great that you're doing that with your kids, because that really is where it starts. It starts at home, and it starts with being a steward over your family. And not only leading by example, but then also teaching your kids that this is why. And I think that's a little piece that kind of gets missed in what you're talking about right now too, is the why part.
Hmm.
You know, well, because this is what we do, because we're men, so we must, right? And I mean, there's all these absolute statements. One thing I did with my boys, and I did it totally on accident, really, at first, because I just guessed that it was the right thing to do. But looking back, it was a huge, huge win. that I stumbled into. And that was that when I would tell them, hey, this is what you need to do, I would follow it up with, and here's why. And so I didn't get a lot of rebellion and I didn't get blowback. And they took it and they understood. Now I know why dad's telling me this. You know, so many parents are like, you're going to do it because I said so. Well,
Yep.
if your kid's as strong-willed as you are, they're not going to take that crap.
They'd be like, well, hell, screw you, old man.
Right. Okay, well, I said not, so I don't know what to tell you, right? Yeah, they don't just obey like that, you know, but when you can treat them with a little bit of respect and say, hey, I'm going to give you a little respect. Let's see if you can give it back. I did that with my boys. It worked wonderfully. And now when things come up, they understand that. You know, I'm getting ready to be a grandfather here, and which is
Congratulations.
I appreciate it, which is really cool. I've been waiting for that for a long time. So now I get to watch my sons become dads and put these lessons out there also. And that's something they've actually talked about out loud is that when I tell them this is what they should do, I'm going to make sure I tell them why. So, you know, I think that's important. You know, when you're talking to your boys, when men are trying to steward at home, don't be afraid to explain yourself and say why you want them to do it. It just helps them understand and put it in context.
Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna
Uh,
actually try getting myself trained to do that a little bit more.
It's tough, yeah, because we're men. So we're like, I shouldn't have to explain myself to my kid.
Hmm.
Just do it, you know. But works a lot better the other way,
Yep.
long term.
Well, I suppose I've had you on here for about an hour. I know you're a busy guy.
I appreciate you, man.
So, is there anything that you want to kind of get out there before we take off?
The only thing I want to put out there is I'm really glad that you and your family are doing well. Love the news about your wife. The fact that you have kids doing podcasts, and you even have one about your dog, has always just cracked me up to the nth degree, and I love it. And I love that you all love podcasting, and each other the way that you do. And I'm really glad to see you back, brother.
Thank you.
That's it. That's all I got to say.
It is good to be back.
It's awesome.
But so with that, I want to thank you. And again, you're welcome on any of our shows. And maybe I should write in one of the scripts too, one of the dog scripts, and have you be a character.
Oh, you know what? Anytime. That sounds like fun. I don't even know what that means, but you know what? I'll try anything. That sounds fantastic.
We just try coming up with different animals and stuff like that they run into in the wild. We've got one of our friends, he's in Australia. I just sent him the script. We're waiting on his work schedule is a little chaotic, and once we can get a time nailed down, it's going to be the dogs visit Australia and talk to a kangaroo. So
All right.
I'll have to figure out what's your state animal there in Indiana?
Oh, I have no idea. I have no idea what our animal is. I mean, I got one behind me. You know what I mean? If you're looking for a
Oh,
Rory
there we
animal,
go.
I mean,
All right.
the lion really does kind of fit. But hey, man, I mean, I can adapt to anything, But if you're looking for character traits, I'm not Australian. I can't do an Irish accent or anything. But if you got like a big Italian hitman kind of guy, maybe a mafia dude or something, I'm there. A
Have to
little
look
East
into that.
Coast.
Well, if I do the lion, it'll be easy because I can throw in some don't eat me jokes. So,
Whatever you want to do, dude. I mean, honestly, I'm. Anytime you guys want to have me on something, you just let me know. I'll make time for you guys. You're all awesome. And if you want
okay.
to do something fun like that with a dog, I don't care. Let's do it. Why not? Let's have
All
some fun.
right. Yeah, I'll get a script together for you.
Love it. Love it.
But I want to thank you for being on. And yeah, like I said, you're welcome on any show we've got. So you have an open invitation to anything.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
So, but I'll let you get back to your day because I know you got a busy day. You probably got something scheduled right after this too, probably.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
I want to thank you again, Rory, for being on. And I'll make sure I send you a copy of this and you'll see it. It'll probably be out later on today.
Awesome, man. I love it. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Hey, no problem. You have a good night.
You too.